this edition of Southern Newsweek, Dunedin's Anglican Church denies that it may have to sell the century-old St Paul's Church in the Octagon, but is there more to the story? An announcement is made around the future of Queenstown's Catholic primary school, and hundreds gather together at Forsyth Bar Stadium to hear a travelling preacher. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. The head of Dunedin's St Paul's Anglican Church, the Bishop of Dunedin, Calvin Wright, has denied suggestions the church is broke and troubled. And Bishop Wright moved to scotch any suggestion the church's 98-year-old cathedral in the Octagon might be put up for sale. Roselle LeBone has more.
The St Paul's Cathedral congregation might be dwindling and the Anglican Church might be reducing the number of its Dunedin parishes, but that does not mean its cathedral in the Octagon is likely to be put up for sale.
The issues are the same as every parish church, except the stakes are bigger here.
Questions over the future of the cathedral were raised by Anglican Dean, the Very Reverend Dr Trevor James, in the Otago Daily Times this morning. He revealed the church was considering reducing the number of its Dunedin parishes from 7 to 5 and said the diocese was broke and the church troubled. But today he too discounted any possibility of the cathedral leaving church hands.
I think that there's a great resolve in the church to keep the cathedral going. Obviously, if there were no people in the church, then that would have to be looked at. We'd have to think about what else do we do with this building.
While he believed the cathedral's future needed to be considered alongside other parishes at risk, Bishop Wright considered the cathedral a special case.
It's a very strategic location and it's a beautiful building, but very expensive to maintain. And there is no question, nobody has ever suggested that we should sell it or get rid of it. The question is how we best use it.
He said he was flabbergasted by reports of infighting in the church.
I don't think it's a fight. I think that we are having a discussion about the use of our resources.
The ODT discussed infighting in a way that's going on in the diocese. Is there validity to that?
Oh, I think there's always going to be disagreements of personalities, and there will always be certain dimensions of rivalry.
Bishop Wright said while the cathedral's immediate future was secure, there was a need for it to be used for more commercial purposes.
The diocese is an organisation which actually is very well resourced, but it's asset rich and cash poor.
Reverend Trevor James said today no serious offer had been made by any buyer to purchase the cathedral. The issue will be discussed further by 3 representatives from the cathedral and the diocese. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
Central and local government organisations are working together on a scheme to improve public transport in the Queenstown area. The improvements will reduce bus fares and create better bus routes and timetables. Mina Amso has the details.
Taking the bus in the Queenstown area is likely to become a much more attractive option from July 1st. That's the date from which bus patrons with concession cards might be paying around $2 for a ride, compared with the current fares that can range up to $15 one way from Arrowtown to Queenstown Central. So even though the bus fares will be a lot more affordable for passengers travelling from Arrowtown, Frankton and Fernhill, the $1 million question is, will more people use the service?
Oh, that'll be great, yes.
That would save I wouldn't even have to get a car.
Well, that sounds good to me because I normally use the bus, so that helps a lot.
Queenstown Mayor Jim Bolt told the Mountain Scene the public transport improvements are a joint effort by the New Zealand Transport Agency, Queenstown Lakes District Council and the Otago Regional Council, and expected to cost about $2 million a year. The Transport Agency picking up half the cost and the Otago Council the rest.
A large sum of money. We're going from what is currently a commercial service, in other words, the fares pay the full cost, to something that is a subsidised scheme with improved services, improved frequency, improved structure.
And the Queenstown Council is looking to motorists to help pay for the improved service. through higher parking charges.
While that still needs to go through, due process, our intention is to look at raising parking fees as part of the way of recovering this cost.
Phelan says the council hasn't decided how much parking charges will increase, but the upside for motorists will be less traffic congestion. ORC and QLDC will seek community support for the proposed changes and will hold public consultations in the near future. Mina Anso, The South Today.
The future of Queenstown's Catholic primary school and adjacent convent building is now more certain. Catholic Diocese of Dunedin Bishop Colin Campbell has announced the 144-year-old school will not be moved to Frankton, meaning the school and the adjacent historic convent can be redeveloped. Here's Mina Amso.
As St Joseph's primary students finish class for the day is not yet over for school principal Trish Inder. She will be staying behind, working on plans for her school's redevelopment. So the plans have been set in place for the school. Literally, the school will remain on Melbourne Street, and despite some discussions earlier on that the school was going to be moved to Frankton, and also while the news of the school to remain here is reassuring for staff and the principal, parents in the past had reservations about the current site.
The things that we're dealing with are we've got new schools being built, and so that's why being told that we're going to be able to upgrade this area is important.
The risks were considered too high for it to be a feasible relocation in a time where school redevelopments need to be considered. However, the decision to stay put means redevelopment plans that were put on hold can now go ahead. School principal Trish Inder welcomed the decision.
Yeah, I think it'll be a positive way forward.
The old convent building next door will get a touch-up too.
The convent was always part of the redevelopment of St Joseph's School. So the intention is to do whatever strengthening has to be done, upgrade it, we'll take account of all those needs. But it will become a very serviceable part of St Joseph's School.
We're really happy. We think it's a great decision. It's great that the diocese has now made a decision.
It's a great site. It's in a really nice place.
Handing says the convent building would likely to be developed into a main administration part with reception, principal's office and staff room. Costs will be worked out and redevelopment phased according to funding availability. Mina Anso, The South Today.
New figures released by Maxim Institute show a mixed forecast for Dunedin's population growth. A report by researcher Julian Wood shows while South Island centres such as Queenstown are set to expand, other areas including Southland are facing decline.
Maxim has released a report showing 44 of the country's 67 local authority regions will stagnate or decline within 30 years. And Maxim researcher Julian Wood says the news is good and bad for Dunedin.
I've run the numbers this afternoon, and if we look at Dunedin City, you've become one of the regions that this migration has altered the numbers a little bit. So you've now become a region that is not predicted to have zero growth or even enter into decline in the time frame. But there's a caveat to this, and that is that you're still feeling the effects of this ageing population. So the growth that you do have, the majority of it is the 65 plus age group.
He says the ageing population is having a big impact, and after 2033, population growth is set to slow down dramatically. That could place the city's infrastructure under severe financial strain.
People suggest actually is that you actually accept that this ageing population is going to happen, and you seek opportunities to that come with that, because there are a lot of opportunities that come with an ageing population. People's taste and preference changes, the type of tourism that people engage in.
Wood says it is not possible to turn around the trend of ageing population and declining birth rate. He says Dunedin has had a steady pool of net migration over the years from around the country, but the community will have to be even more welcoming to new arrivals with these recent figures. Dunedin City Council's Fraser Liggett says the figures are not a cause for alarm.
As part of our long-term planning processes, we actually look at demographics every 3 years. And from a Dunedin city perspective, we don't actually believe we're in that stagnate space.
He remains confident Dunedin can sustain its growth beyond the next 30 years. Roselle Lebone, The South Today.
About 1,000 people turned out to hear Christian apologist Ravi Zacharias at Forsyth Bar Stadium. Roselle Lebone has the story of the travelling preacher.
Known for his intellectual, balanced approach to Christian apologetics, a field of theology that espouses reason and historical accuracy, Ravi Zacharias could be called the C.S. Lewis of the age. He is in Dunedin for the first time and today presented a leaders' breakfast following on from his appearance at the Forsyth Bar Stadium this weekend to an audience of over 4,000. I caught up with Zacharias for a conversation on the topics of truth, politics and the role of the New Zealand media.
Oh, you also on Saturday quoted Malcolm Muggeridge as his discussion on a fishbone stuck in the throat of the handheld microphone. And but in fact, in a discussion that you had in 1993 with Just Thinking magazine, you mentioned that in an event where there was an argument around words, the word target, it was the journalist who in fact fished out the lie in that instance. In terms of today's climate, which some might see as similar to some of the Cold War era, what is the journalist's role in pulling the fishbone out from the microphone, and what difference can the New Zealand media, seemingly at one remove, make?
I think the journalist is very important in our time to tell us the truth, because we are hearing so many voices, so many sounds. We are making key decisions that affect the lives of people. And if ideology takes over facts, then distortion will abound.
You have been commended for your balanced approach in debate and conversation with men and women from disparate backgrounds around the world. How do we instigate peace between leaders, if not with universalism? And does it come with a knife, or does it come with an olive branch?
Oh, that's a marvelous question. This has been my life. I have had so much of my life spent with people with opposing viewpoints. I think the word tolerance is a very misused word, because tolerance has two edges to it. But we don't like the other edge. We only like the edge that suits us.
You said in another interview regarding Dawkins' rally for reason in Washington, his comments against Christians while in Christian countries were made with impunity. Is it still your view that Dawkins is a belligerent atheist? And if so, is the rest of the world behind him?
He's free to believe what he does, and thankfully we are free to believe what we do, and we know in the end the answers of Jesus are much brighter than those of Richard Dawkins.
At the breakfast, Zacharias also talked about his experiences as a 17-year-old so desperate for answers that he tried to take his own life. It is through these experiences that he says he found the true calling of God. Roselle Lebone, The South Today.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, thriller readers come out from behind their curtains to bask in the flickering light of one of their heroes. And in Invercargill beaches, get some TLC as the country marks Sea Week. Welcome back. Around 60 Dunedin fans of thriller writing have been spellbound by American author Greg Hurwitz. The event at the Dunedin Public Library was part of the author's worldwide book tour for his latest work.
Move over, Lee Child. Greg Hurwitz is fast becoming one of the biggest authors in the genre of thriller novels. The first of his Orphan X series of novels has already been translated into 20 languages. We asked him how he felt about taking time away from home to promote his books.
Well, I actually love going on tour. I especially love going to different countries because it's always interesting what questions are prominent on the minds in different countries. You get different questions in New Zealand than I did certainly in Russia or Norway. And so it's always fun, and for me it's really gratifying seeing how this character who means so much to me is connected with readers. and Orphan X has been translated into 20 languages. And so it's always exciting for me to hear and interact with people as the translations start to roll out around the world.
Hurwitz admits his main character of professional hitman Evan Smoke is partially modelled on himself, but whether his character has ever visited New Zealand was unclear.
Evan Smoke might have been in New Zealand already. All of his records are redacted. We don't know. We don't have information about that. But at some point he might make a visit. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing given what he does for a living, so we have to wait and see.
Greg Hurwitz's talk is just one of an ongoing series of events featuring visiting writers at Dunedin Public Library. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
The Gore district swarmed with vintage cars at the weekend when the Gore Vintage Car Club had its 50th annual festival rally. To celebrate the milestone, organisers say people from throughout the Lower South Island brought vintage cars to join the rally.
Getting their motors running and heading for the highway, looking for a mechanic and whatever comes their way. Assistant rally organiser Dennis Knight has been a member of the Gore Vintage Car Club for 5 years, but is steering the event for the first time.
Yeah, well, it's been run by the club for 50 years. Personally, this is my first year. I'm just learning the ropes. Keith Dodds and Raywin have been showing me how to go about it, so yeah, I'm a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, but as a club, it's been going for quite some time, yeah.
Knight says the number of cars entered has nearly doubled for this event, which he puts down to the major anniversary.
Usually between 30 to 40 cars, but this year obviously we've pushed it a wee bit harder and got some people coming back who were on the original run and the locals of course supporting it, so yeah, being 30 cars would have been the average before.
Knight says 10 people who were on the original rally 50 years ago are on this run. He says the weekend's event ran smoothly, even for some of the older cars in the field. However, to qualify as vintage, cars need to be at least 30 years old. It might be time to dust off that early 80s Nissan. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
Car parts, rope, lighters and broken glass, just some of the rubbish picked up by a team of Southland environmentalists this week. It's Sea Week across the country and Invercargill MP Sarah Dowie organised a beach clean-up to mark the event.
Sand, wind, rubbish and around 100 volunteers braving it all to clean up the Southland coastline. Hi, I'm Ruby Spink in Invercargill at Oriti Beach, where the MP Sarah Dowie's hosting a beach clean-up. It's Sea Week and all around New Zealand discussions are taking place on how to best protect our coasts. Sarah Dowie organised practical action for people to take part in this morning.
Oriti Beach is integral to our community here in Southland. It's one of the only beaches in New Zealand that you can still drive your car on. So it's really important that we protect that freedom and keep it clean and appreciate everything about the ocean.
People from Z Fuel, Invercargill Environment Centre, Environment Southland and 70 students from Otatata Primary and Preschools took part this morning. The Department of Conservation also joined in. Supervisor of Murihiku team, John McCarroll, says it's hard to measure the vast amounts of rubbish in our seas and on our beaches, let alone the impacts on sea life. But it's not good.
To sea creatures, as we know, there's a lot of rubbish. It'll strangle them, it'll get caught up, it'll affect their day-to-day life, suffocate, kill them, impact on their habitats where they can't actually go and operate normally to get food and that sort of thing.
And the next generation of environmentalists had a blast tidying up the beach this morning. They also found some interesting things amongst the sand, including a 1938 penny.
Pretty much this gumboot we've got here, because we're thinking to make like a craft of it, and also we found a lighter that still works, so we got to be very careful with it.
Well, I found this lighter and Caleb, my friend's still thinking that it's able to work. This is a gumboot and I found it under some sand pieces.
Yeah, Caleb.
Well, I've got a rope and it was right up on the hill. Well, this is the most interesting piece because it's a belt and it looks like it's been half burnt off or like ripped off.
Sarah Dowie says this sort of thing can't happen without the support of so many different parts of the community. I'm Ruby Spink for The South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a new poetry walking trail opens in Dunedin, and crowds enjoyed watching dozens of entertainers at the recent inaugural South Dunedin Busking Festival. Welcome back. A new poetry walking trail has opened in Port Chalmers. The trail includes 11 ceramic tiles, each containing a piece of poetry inspired by the area. Rudy Adrian was there.
The scenic Back Beach Road at Port Chalmers now has an added literary dimension in the form of a poetry walk. Dunedin's Mayor Cole was there for the official opening.
This is very much in keeping with our City of Literature status. But also, if you go to the Octagon, you'll find 23 bronze plaques commemorating Dunedin writers or writers that have spent some time in or been influenced by Dunedin. In some ways, this is an extension of that. 11 beautiful ceramic tiles and wonderfully tactile as well as literary, with this little verse, almost a haiku on each one. It's lovely.
Ceramic artist Tina Gruber has invested a lot of time to make the 11 handcrafted tiles.
I've been working on it more or less for a year. That includes the design work, the research, going to the library and the Port Chalmers Museum, just to get a feel of the history and the boat building. I've kind of had a look at how rivets are actually made and how they were used in the old boats, and then kind of translated that into the ceramic process for the big tiles.
With Dunedin being recognised by UNESCO as a City of Literature, this could be the start of a lot more waterfront poetry to come.
There's dozens and dozens of writers, both past and probably in the future, who would like to, I think, contribute to this or be commemorated by this. So I can see this taking off all around Otago Harbour.
In the meantime, walkers can take in the beautiful surrounds of Port Chalmers Back Beach and read the poetry inspired by the area. Rudy Adrian, The South Today.
Organisers of the inaugural South Dunedin Busking Festival say there's every chance the event will become an annual attraction in Dunedin. The event is being hailed a success after around 60 entertainers played for hundreds of people who browsed the musical smorgasbord on offer. Daryl Baser was out on the streets.
South Dunedin was alive with the sound of music on Saturday as performers from under 10 years to those aged 60 plus shared their talents. Hundreds of people were in South Dunedin's main street to listen and pay as performers took part in the inaugural South Dunedin Busking Festival. Some of the musicians had opted to be judged in the competition side of the event. This is 10-year-old Michaela Haupapa, who won the under 13 years category. The music group aged under 18 years section was won by the two Busketeers, Emily Rose and Gracie Young, whose combined age is 20. Both are writing songs already, as 9-year-old Emily Rose explains.
I wrote Nature and I sang that one, and also I sang River with Water, and I did Firelight with Gracie.
The group's 18 years and over section was won by the duo of Matthew Rhodes and Chris Butchard, who charmed the crowds just a bit more than Valley Bluegrass, who took second. In the music 13 to 18 years event, D'Angelo Wade just pipped Hayley MacArthur, who was given a special mention for her generosity to other musicians. And finally, in the music soloists 18 years and over, seasoned performer Meg Smith took top honours. Organisers believe the event was a complete success, and there are strong rumours of it becoming another event on the South Dunedin calendar. Until then, there's the return of the South Dunedin Street Festival in November this year. Daryl Baser, The South Today.
And finally, names and dates carved into University of Otago lecture theatre desktops more than a century ago are providing a tantalising glimpse into the life of former students. Sections of the desktops were up for sale at an antiques and collectibles auction at Hurwitz Auction House, Dunedin this week. Prior to the sale, auctioneer John Moore says it was unclear what the panels might fetch. The items come from a deceased estate. The person had retrieved them from a skip after they were thrown out during renovations at the University Registry in 1994. Some of the inscriptions were dated in the 1880s and another in 1902. The carved panels were among 954 items for sale at the firm's first antique and collectible auction of the year. And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube or Twitter, and you can keep up with Southern News via our website too, channel39.co.nz. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.